So today is probably going to be one of our last rides on Tango here. Aprilia RS50. Don't think I'm going to be on her for much longer now. Obviously today is Monday, my birthday is Tuesday, and I'm going to be on my new bike as of Friday. So obviously I thought that I would make a review since I've had 9 months experience on the RS50 now, and you know, it would be a waste not to do one. So I'm just gonna now and we'll start the review. Well then, here you have it, Tango, my Aprilia RS50. It's the new shape model. For those of you that aren't aware, there are two shapes. You've got like the old version, which is like a bubble, and this is their new shape. So starting with the review, I mean, first things first is probably the appearance of the bike. Obviously this has been custom sprayed in orange and black, but by default they usually come in black with the blue wheels. I think they also do a red one as well. But you've got to say, for a 50cc, it looks awesome. It looks much bigger than it is. I mean, if you compare this to a 50cc scooter, for example, that's something else you could be riding. 50cc engine, but this has just got the bodywork of a huge bike. I mean, it's not huge, but it's big enough. And the main point for me was why I ride this bike for my first bike, because this is the first bike I've ever ridden at the age of 16, is because of the sports bike style. So it's enabled me how to maneuver the sports bike way, sort of to and from left and right, to lean, the sitting position, you know, it's quite up front, and also obviously you got your clutch and your gears. So I've managed to learn the gears. It's all preparation for a proper sports bike, whether it's a 125, 400, 1000. It definitely gives you them skills that you're gonna need. Obviously a bigger bike is going to be slightly heavier, more power, but it gives you the basics you need to know. So as for the speed for the Aprilia RS50, this one in particular has been tuned a little bit, and it's got a lot of acceleration. They're quite nippy, they're good for going around in the towns. You open that throttle up and the response is there. Top end wise, you know, they're not much capable of more than 50 miles per hour perhaps, depending on what crazy modifications you do to it. This one in certain has got a GNLE carbon performance exhaust system. It's also got upgraded jets in the carburetor, and has had a few bits removed to make it a little bit lighter, just little bits like that. You know, your sprocket as well, smaller sprocket, faster acceleration, stuff like that. Generally they're capable between 40 miles per hour onwards, which is more than adequate top speed for someone of my age just commuting around the towns. You know, it's manageable power, but it's definitely scary, like for the first time, and then you soon get bored a little while afterwards. But it's good to start with. Like, this is the key thing. This is a learner legal bike, which most 16-year-olds are going to be jumping on. So if you guys are considering one, you know, it really does get you ready for something like that. So up, so you can see the dash, and obviously here it's starting up. It is a 2-stroke engine, which means that the oil under the seat is then mixed in with the petrol in the tank to lubricate the engine. Gives it that extra bit of power over the 4-stroke. So obviously when you turn the dashboard on, it's pretty awesome. You've got this mixed analog digital display. You've got your revs, your neutral light, petrol warning, and then obviously you've got your miles per hour on here with multiple settings. You've got time, you've got your battery voltage, you can put a stop clock on, and also obviously the total mileage, and then a odometer as well, to set your own personal trip. So obviously push the electric start in, a little bit of a throttle, and she will happily tick over. So it's quite noisy, bearing in mind the performance exhaust, and I'll be honest, 2-strokes don't sound great. You know, a lot of people call them hair dryers, chainsaws, trimmers, whatever, because they do a little bit. But obviously the larger 2-strokes do sound better. Ultimately 4-strokes will always sound better, but you can't get this sort of performance and street motorbike look in a 4-stroke on a 50. So personally, to me, like, it's personal preference, but I think that sounds pretty cool. I love the little sound of the high-pitched rev. It just sounds really cool. but maybe that's just me. Obviously you've got your indicators here. I've got LED micro ones, they just flash. You've got your horn also lower down, your low beam and high beam. So at the moment the low beam light's on, and that'll get brighter as you rev the throttle because it's all run off the alternator. So if your throttle's fully opened, that light will be stronger. And the high beam is then the other headlight, which is this one here. So this is your low beam, your normal light, and then you have high beam. Personally, I would have preferred it if they were both on. Maybe like it just got brighter, but that's because they're two completely separate different lights. But you know, whatever, that's cool with me. Obviously you've got your choke here as well for your engine, and then over on this side you've got your kill switch and electric start if it's start your bike. Obviously down here you've got your foot peg and your gear shifter and stand, and then on the other side you've got the other footrest and the rear brake. So I'll go ahead and turn the engine off now. I mean, starting like that started easy. Once they're warmed up, it's all good. Obviously in the winter they're not the greatest because of the 50, but it's all alright. So moving on to the braking of the bike, they're fairly good. You know, if you've got good brake pads, ones that have actually got some life in them, the bike brakes pretty well. Bearing in mind these are only supposed to, you know, capable of 30 to 50 miles per hour, they are good enough to brake up to 35, 50 miles per hour. If your bike exceeds 50 miles per hour, the braking isn't meant on this bike to be capable of stopping speeds of that. So it is a little bit slower, you know, it isn't as good. But, you know, casually commuting at 34 miles per hour, your front brake and your rear brake, they work brilliantly. I can't fault them whatsoever. So a few technical specifications. Obviously this bike is a 2-stroke liquid cooled engine. The water coolant's actually under the tank. The oil reservoir is located under the seat, which, you know, it's fairly good location right here. You top your 2-stroke up here. So I mean, with all these consideration, there are always going to be bad points. So if we just reevaluate, I think the looks are stunning for the bike. Really, really good. The power is also very good as well. Braking's more than adequate. Sounds alright. Cheap to run. The reliable bikes in the world, they are very high maintenance. They need a lot of work. And when I say a lot of work, just the general checks is what I'm referring to. Just you need to constantly be bang on checking the chain, you know, changing the spark plug out, changing your fluids. Because of the small engine and all the parts are so small and fragile, it doesn't take a lot to sort of send them off point. And they're not really made for all year riding. Like, to be honest, most bikers and riders don't use their bikes during the winter, but if they do, they're generally on a large bike. So if you're trying to get a small little 50cc engine, small battery to tick over in this cold weather, it's going to struggle, isn't it? So they're not quite made for the winter, but I managed to get through it. I'll be honest, it didn't always start. Sometimes you might have to bump the bike, but that was on a very rare occasion, and that's just like the ultimatum if that happens. Very easy to bump because it's geared and whatnot. The good news is, obviously, if anything does go wrong, parts do go faulty over time. It's just one of them things. Very cheap to swap out. The parts are cheap as anything. So I think overall of this Aprilia, it looks awesome. It trains you very well for the large bikes. Everyone is just impressed if you're 16 on one of these things. They're like, wow, that's really awesome. It looks like a real sports bike. It's got enough acceleration and power to, you know, get you started on the road. Nothing too bad. And very cost effective. The bikes themselves are quite cheap. Insurance, you know, not too expensive depending on what insurance type you go on, whether it's third party, fully comprehensive, etc. And, you know, petrol and oil is just pocket money, really. Me personally, I spend £9 a tank, which gets me about 150 miles, which lasts me about 2 weeks. So a tenner every 2 weeks isn't that much, bearing in mind I use this on a daily basis, which isn't bad at all. Obviously the oil is about £10 a bottle depending on what quality you get, but that is only minute amount, like every now and then. So guys, I hope you enjoyed my review. I'm going to go for a little ride, and perhaps I'll add some footage on the end so that you can see me just, you know, riding the Aprilia, what it's actually like. But overall recommendation, I recommend this bike. It's awesome. Just be prepared for a high maintenance bike, which perhaps things may need replacing in your time of owning the bike, and just make sure you check the odd bits and bobs. So guys, I'm going to go for a ride now, and I'll catch you guys on the road.